$2 for 4.
Yeah, that was scary.
I shit. I was in that CVS and I shit.
And welcome to the Down a Friend podcast, the official podcast of downafriendpodcast.com. I'm your host, Warren. I'm excited. I'm glad that we were back. We have a good crew with us. We have a bunch of my best friends. And tonight, we are talking about probably one of the most debated movies of 2018, I think. Ready Player One, directed by Steven Spielberg. Music's by Alan Silvestri. It stars, I don't think there's many, not really like many superstars in the movie, but I'm excited to kind of unpack it. We're excited. We're talking about it. But before we get into that, before we get into talking about how hopefully the Celtics win tonight, I'm going to toss it over to one of my best friends. I miss this guy. I haven't seen him in years. The mouth of the South, Mr. Brylan, and he is drinking something super fancy tonight. So, Brylan, holla at you, boy.
What is up? Thank you, Warren. Good night. Good evening, everybody. What I'm drinking right now is Apothic Brew. So, Apothic Brew came out this past Sunday for Easter and April Fools, and it is It's an Apothic Red mixed with cold brew coffee. And usually, I'm not one to get like limeritas or shandies or BS that adds fruit or whatever to your alcoholic beverage, because I appreciate the beverage for what it is.
Pure.
And this changes my mind. I'm just going to say it. This is probably one of the best wines I've ever had. It definitely, that in first sip tastes like a red, but then you get a roller coaster of different flavors in your mouth while you drink it. It is amazing. # sip to that. Let all your friends know about this. Everybody needs to drink this. It's awesome.
Nice.
What I've been watching. Oh, go ahead.
Proceed. I'm excited. I want to drink that, but I don't like coffee. So do you think it tastes too much like coffee?
No. I would say you probably get like a hint of coffee, but it's not overpowering.
Is it a chuggable wine?
I am starting to chug it. And I don't know if that's
what is it,
because a lot of it's in me right now. But I am enjoying every sip I take.
And what have you been watching?
What I've been watching is I watched a Marvel movie. I have completed that little hole in my MCU universe watching experience, and I finally watched The Incredible Hulk. So this is an interesting movie. It reminds me that at the beginning, Marvel didn't exactly know what they were doing. This is even like the most serious Marvel movie out there. There's not that many jokes in it, or not much humor in it as well. But there are some really cool things about it. I like the whole idea of it being kind of like The Fugitive meets Frankenstein. I like that concept and that idea. I don't like, I don't know if this is on the actor that plays Bruce Banner in it. I forget his name.
Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, yes. Edward Norton's fault, but he has like 10 sentences in the whole movie that he says. So it's not much for him to work with. And they also have a whole 5-minute scene where the Hulk is screaming at the rain and is afraid of the rain for some reason.
Don't we all?
Tim Roth is not a good bad guy. He's probably the worst bad guy in the MCU. And wow, I was like, Thunderbolt Ross, he definitely grew a conscience after this movie, because he's basically just wanting to kill Bruce Banner the whole time in this movie. He's a very evil guy in this film. But it's probably the worst film in the MCU.
Thor: The Dark World.
Thor: Dark World.
I watched Dark World right after watching this, and Dark World at least has some entertaining moments.
Dark World is definitely more entertaining. Hulk is a hunk of green shit.
Yeah.
You guys are crazy. But as always, Brylan, great to see you.
Yeah, and Hulk and Abomination, they look like two Play-Doh claymations just having sex.
It's true.
Yeah,
that was
that.
a decade ago, though, when that came out. So CGI's gotten a lot better.
Doesn't matter.
I've seen Gumby.
I mean, Gumby's a great show. But yeah, thanks. And Brylan, I'm excited for you to actually be on this actual episode because I think, especially for us, can we have 4 of us here, that me and you have actually read the book and Blewett and Abbott has not. So it's going to be a very interesting and healthy conversation. Yeah.
I don't know how to read.
Yeah, this is Team No Read over here. Team Illiterate.
There we go. Let's talk about Team Illiterate. Let's toss it over to the beautiful Abbott, the Abs man, who is the host of the Fear Boners. Abbott, what you sipping on and what you been watching?
I grew my hair out for this, you guys. I'm sipping on some Chivo Loco. It's the cheap $3 bottle of wine that they do at the liquor store down the street. I think they just got a big shipment of it, and it's been there for years, but I don't know where it comes from. It's part Syrah, part Monsterel. I've never heard of either of those wines, but it's a blend, and it's from 2010, so it's well aged at this point. It's almost a decade old, and I think it means crazy goat. I don't know. I don't speak any language other than English. It's pretty good. It's cheap. Does the trick. And then what I've been watching, I actually just less than an hour from this recording, I finished watching the Trailer Park Boys season 12 with Kyle out in the living room. They've been doing that for so long now that they're like sort of a Netflix franchise. It's still good. Funny as hell. They can still pull it off. I'm still excited to see what they do with the next season, if they do a next season. So yeah, if you're a fan of that season, or even if you haven't, or that show, or if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. It's all on Netflix, 12 seasons, definitely a lot to catch up on. You want to laugh?
12 seasons?
Yeah, it's weird to think about.
Yeah, it's one of those shows that I feel like came out 2 years ago. I was like, I might check it out on Netflix. Now, 12 seasons later.
That was my reaction. I remember picking it up when it was like 4 or 5 seasons in and being like, I keep getting people telling me about how funny this is. And I watched it, laughed my ass off, and now I've been watching it ever since. And it's hilarious. It just really gives you a great feel for how life in Canada is pretty much all the time. Our neighbors to the north.
Yeah, I was gonna make a Game of Thrones joke, but also great to see you, and it's nice to actually see your face instead of just hear your voice playing Monster Hunter. So always a good time. Always a good time.
Love you guys.
I want to toss it over to my very best friend. Yes, that's even more so than Brylan and Abbott. The shredder of everybody's dreams. No, Mike Blewett. Mike, what's up, man?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just shredding away here. Do my thing. I got some water for tonight because the last couple decades of my life have been, a little bit. So I'm trying to keep it down.
So dark.
It's tax season, Yeah. Well, as for what I've been watching, nothing really. I'm real busy. Like, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on that has been absolutely nothing. I went and played paintball on Easter. That's about it. Everything that I've done exciting, but that's in the real world, not like a fake world. So I don't know.
The Oasis?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a pretty apt comparison. I unplugged and shot people in real life. They did give me coins when they.
Don't say that. You don't want that recorded.
Yo, it's not like this thing's going on YouTube or anything. Is that too soon? That's like hours later.
Yeah, that's too soon, bro.
So today is my last time on the podcast. I will not be invited back.
No, nobody wants to edit this. You'll be back.
No, but I've been literally watching nothing. I've been busy like 20 hours straight.
That's not even a whole day.
Nope.
I had to
You still
sleep
have
for a
time
couple
to.
of them.
sleep and poop.
It was mostly
or poop
poo.
while you sleep.
Ooh, I mean, that's what I do. I wear diapers. But as well, great to see you. Great for having you. I am Warren. I will be the host for this evening's episode. And I am actually still drinking my red wine blend called Block Red Cabernet Sauvignon from Trader Joe's. So shout out to Shelby for that because she left this here for a while ago. And I have been slowly sipping away. And I was really excited to finally binge and catch up on Love Season 3. That's on Netflix. Has anybody else seen the show?
I don't believe in love.
Okay. It's executive produced by the guy who done like the
Judd Apatow.
Judd Apatow, thank you. And then Paul Rust and stars Gillian Anderson and like a bunch of people. Like the show is absolutely solid. I think it's a show that definitely makes you think. And I think it's probably the best representation of sometimes sort of chaotic or just like relationships in general, how they can work, how they can not work, and like kind of ups and downs. It doesn't really kind of fairy tale things for you, and it really kind of shows like people deal with shit a lot, and when it comes to love and relationships and things that happens. And I think I heard a rumor that I think this may have been like this will be the last season, and if it is, I think it ended on an absolute perfect note, because we've literally grew with these characters. They only had 3 seasons. But we really grew with these characters throughout the entire sort of series, and it's very interesting. But it's also a little, like, people say it's a little bit dark, but I just think it's more honest. It's more a real approach of, relationships aren't easy, just like friendships aren't easy, and it takes some sacrifice and kind of a lot of back and forth. So I really, really enjoyed the show. That's Love is season 3, definitely on Netflix. So definitely go check it out.
I have a question. Gillian
Yeah.
Anderson, is that who you said was in it?
Yeah.
Are there any aliens in the show?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to watch it.
Thank you. So we're excited. We're pumped. And as always, we're going to give you a quick intermission for everybody. And this is going to be our spoiler warning. So we're going to get into our entire sort of section in which we're going to be talking about and potentially ruining Ready Player One. And we're going to be talking about all spoiler and just everything that we like and didn't like and things that we want to do better next time. So if you haven't seen the movie, I would pause, go watch the movie, come back and pick up, and we will begin momentarily. See you soon. And we are back, and we are the Down in Front Podcast, the official podcast of downinfrontpodcast.com. We are here. I'm with Brylan, Abbott, Mike Blewett, and myself, Warren, and we're going to be reviewing and giving you an entire spoiler-filled section of Ready Player One, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's exciting because I read the book, Brylan has read the book, Abbott can't read, and Mike is just too busy and also can't read. So I'm excited to actually kind of toss this up and kind of talk about a few different topics and do a few different things. So I'm excited to talk about probably the characters in the acting and the stuff that we talked about this movie. So I'm going to toss it over to first Bryland and says, talk to me about Ready Player One.
All right. So one thing I think is pretty awesome about this movie is when it comes to the characters, I really like the avatar designs. They remind me a lot of an old 90s Saturday morning cartoon called Reboot, just done 20 times better, which
they put up the new one on Netflix.
Just fantastic. I love it where there's a new Reboot?
Yeah, they did like a remake on Netflix. It's like a Canadian production.
Oh, crazy.
They did a reboot of Reboot?
Shut up, Warren.
Yeah, shut up.
And interesting fun fact is those character designs were created by Steven Spielberg's daughter, Michaela, which is pretty cool. But they had a really unique thing. I thought it was pretty cool that those characters kind of like showed a bit of the personality of who the actual people were. So like H's character is very gadgety and stuff. Daito's is very like stoic and samurai, and they do a really good job of like just purveying who they are from the real world into the virtual world of the Oasis. But when it comes to the actual acting in the movie, it's pretty solid except for one person I'll point out in a bit. But I would say two characters that I thought were freaking phenomenal were Mark Rylance and Simon Pegg as Halliday and Og. I thought their relationship was the heart of the movie. I thought it was the whole exploration of how Halliday was in love with Og's wife before they got married, but he never took the chance. And I kind of like that theme, and it's some that's not in the book that they kind of run with. And I thought it actually improved a little bit on like the actual the theme of what the book was trying to say, was this like, hey, no matter what you are in this virtual world and stuff, being yourself and having courage to take that leap, as they say, will definitely be a lot more rewarding. And Simon Pegg is almost unrecognizable in this film. I mean, he definitely dives into that character, and he has an amazing American accent, for one. I didn't even realize that it was Simon Pegg until the credits rolled. And so that's usually like a sign I see that was fantastic acting. And Mark Rylance, I love his very kind of on the spectrum, super genius game designer, software designer that he has, that he speaks it kind of in his own language, but he's able to function. But still some things are a hurdle for him, like social connections and things like that. But he will understand like what it needs to make a business succeed. I wish they explored a lot more of these type of things with Halliday and Og, but for the moments they were in there, they definitely brought a lot to that story.
I do agree with a lot of those points that you're saying, Brylan. Even I think they definitely could have done more, but you know, like in the end of the movie, when he's like hunting for like the golden egg and like the Easter egg that he's trying to give him, and that just him being like kind of sort of socially awkward, but not really. But he like exactly you were saying, like he picks up on some sort of social cues, and the way that they wrote it in the movie was like, this is like his clue was inside like the whole Shining moment and stuff like that, and because he never took like that first leap. And I like how they had a video game that talks about like some stereotypicalness of like nerds, like people who are like super smart, right? I enjoyed that, and I like some of his mannerisms that he was portraying, even as he was the Anorak character. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, Halliday's character, as I appreciate that you mentioned that, like he could potentially be on the spectrum. When my mom taught, she taught kids with Asperger's and other conditions, and I would go in and help her with working with those kids, and I saw like in his performance, you can definitely see that, and you know, they gravitate towards like these sort of fandoms, like video games, cartoons, movies, things like that, and like him being an adult male in a successful position, multi-million-dollar company, and portraying that and acting in that role, like it was very convincing, and I was very convinced and very happy to see that he was accomplished in that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. On the other side of that thing, other side of that coin, I think that one actor that it didn't do a really good job was Ben Mendelsohn as Sorrento. I thought I don't know if it's on Ben Mendelsohn for this issue, because a lot of like one weird thing before I saw this movie was I was hearing a lot of like Spielberg's return to form. It's like, did he ever lose his form in the first place is one question, but I did not realize they were literally meant his return to making an 80s movie, because this is literally a Spielberg 80s movie plot point by plot point. We'll get into the plot later, but one thing it does with this character is it is that character from it is that bad guy from E.T. It is that bad guy from like Indiana Jones. It's the very cartoony that you can't take seriously. He's no threat, but for some reason he's opposing them. And it creates a lot of silly circumstances. Even though him having his password on his VR rig is pretty funny. It's played, I mean, it's definitely dumb, but there's times where like he's like refusing to take a gun, then he takes a gun, he holds up the gun, and then a crowd disperses because it's one guy holding up a gun, and I'm like,
oh my gosh,
that would not fucking happen, especially in some place like the Stacks, which is a ghetto. That is not going to happen.
Yeah, how did no one else in the ghetto not have their own, is it called a piece?
I think they call it a ghetto blaster. Or no, that's a stereo.
They should have been strapped with the gat.
Strapped with a gat.
Strap-ons.
Yeah. But I mean, and Ben Mendelsohn, he's played some great villains in like Rogue One and stuff, but he either can't chew the scenery enough to embellish on this character, or it was just a bad written role.
See,
now, Brian, did it seem like he had he was trying to force an accent in the beginning of the movie? Because I felt like he had this weird accent in the first few scenes he was in, and then it disappeared.
I mean, it just sounded like Krennic again to me, but just like trying to be a bit more emotive.
Maybe.
So
I have to watch it again.
I didn't really have too much of an issue with him as a villain. I actually really liked the whole cartoony part of him, and the fact that he wasn't really a threat. Like, this movie at its core is about our protagonist trying to conquer the Easter egg, not about person versus person. And so I think that you can get away with having a villain that absolutely has no real threat to the heroes, because that's not the central conflict. I honestly loved how he was bizarro. Like, it spoke to who he was as a person. And truthfully, I wish that they went into this more, where he was an intern and he like worked his way up and tried to monotonize everything, kind of like went off the rails there. But at the end, he is still so secondary to the real geniuses that make this, this world exists. And he's basically has this like digital Napoleon concept where he needs to really punch upwards and be more evil than the rest of them just to gain legitimacy, rather than being truly the smartest man in the room. I kind of like that. The you're right, at the end though, that whole gun scene was stupid.
I loved that his avatar was like a weird amalgamation of like Clark Kent and Superman, and it's like, well, this is the bad guy though. Like, how does that? Isn't
that Bizarro though?
You could sort of interpret it that way. He had the weird eyes, but like he was like this. He was dressed like Clark Kent, but he looked like Superman because he had the curl.
Yeah,
and like you could tell that's how he saw himself, but he's still the bad guy. And it's like, well, shit. Like, doesn't everybody sort of see themselves as Superman at one? Like you kind of want to believe that you're Superman, but you're really Clark Kent. And like at the end of the day, like he was a shit stain. Like that was great. I thought that was awesome.
Right. I thought it was interesting that his avatar of himself was something so wildly different, just so he could pretend to be the strong guy, and be the perfect person rather than, kind of the whatever person he was.
But there's some really idiotic things that they make him do. Like, I understand, like, big corporation wanting to monetize everything and capitalize on every inch. But to have like a line where he's like, once we have 80% of the screen advertised, they're not going to go into seizures. And they're trying to play it as a joke, but it just sounds lame when it comes out.
To be fair, have you looked at any website from 2006 and then compared it to the version now? I'm pretty sure that was a very, very good social commentary.
Not really. I mean,
there are sites that won't serve if you have ad blocker on.
Yeah, because they literally push it as hard as they. I thought that line was very good.
I know, going off of Sorrento, I think the thing at least they could have changed in the movie was make Sorrento and IROC's character one person, and not make Sorrento seem such like a bumbling like guy who's just completely like out of it. Like, I think it would have been more impactful if he actually would have cared, but he still would have monetized, but he was a good player, right? And although if he would have been a good player, he doesn't need to know all the knowledge. They can still feed him all that knowledge, but he at least understands some of the mechanics of the game and not like zero knowledge of the game at all. It just made it seem like this guy's a stereotypical business guy. I feel like they put like business guy 1, go, and we're not even going to write a script for you.
I like
and
their
that's the issues I have.
Their dynamic though was like great because it is kind of like what you see today. There's so many people trying to monetize on the gaming industry. Like now is a very like volatile time with that sort of stuff. And the scene where IROC even kind of tries to rebel and does call Sorrento a noob, like that part was hilarious. Because IROC was just the dude who's been sitting in front of his computer for like Lord knows how many days.
But we can even talk about
Sorrento that makes that hilarious. It's IROC that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
But we can make that social commentary. Like you can talk about the social commentary and like kind of even bring it. Like the people who really kind of push those like ads and stuff like that are gamers who actually play in that are already signed contracts with these people. And so they're like literally these large game companies are funneling their agenda through these gamers who has all these followers. And that's how this ends up working out. So They could have did it. I know that we're getting like a bit off topic with characters, but I just think that because they had the IROC character that was popping up out of nowhere, and T.J. Miller's voice is just very distracting to me. I like him, but that was just distracting in that role because it was just trying to be funny for no reason. I felt, and then Sorrento was just such an unlikable character. And I'm like, well, I don't care about either one of these people. It's just tough to want to watch them, especially when you have your password on a fucking post-it note there. Like, come on. Like,
so Warren, when can we sign a contract with a gaming company?
Oh, we already did.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. Prices on the can.
Prices on the can.
Arizona Iced Games.
You got iced. What else about characters, guys, and sort of like acting that we do want to talk about?
I did love the concept, the character design for IROC. Like, I saw him approach the camera, and I was like, "Oh, your chest is a skull, and the eyes and the nose and everything is like that's really cool. That's mad cool." At first, well, because there's that one scene where who is it? Is it Cringer or is it the from He-Man? The lion shows up, and I was like, "Is he Skeletor?" And then I was like, no, he's just some random character made up, but he's still pretty cool." But I would have loved to see more Masters of the Universe, but his character design was really cool.
What about the main character? I was kind of like...
I could definitely tell he was made up by a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Wait, how old is Steven Spielberg's daughter?
She's like in her 20s.
Yeah, I could tell she was made up by a 12-year-old.
Ty Sheridan plays Wade.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually seen him in anything else.
X-Men Apocalypse. He's Cyclops.
Oh,
yeah.
That's why
Okay.
I cringed.
Yeah, a little bit.
He was okay in that movie.
He was okay. He had his moments. I mean, he had the correct amount of awkwardness, I think. I don't think
Needs to be more of a dick.
Does he need to be more of a dick?
Well, to be
Cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, we'll talk.
I
I
would
know
say
we're going
Ty
to talk
Sheridan,
about.
I mean, he was
Yeah.
pretty solid.
Yeah.
I
I think he sold it.
thought he had some really good moments. Like I love his whole thing about trying to get ready for the dance and going through different like costumes he's gonna wear. I thought that was really fun and really talked about like his personality a lot. And like just seeing him like how he's interacting with Artemis throughout that he instantly has a crush on her because it's like that guy that's been watching that hot Twitch girl that he's been watching forever, and then he's like, oh, I finally met her. He's like, what do I do? And this guy is like the rarity of like actually breaking through that like mold of dating a Twitch streamer if he
I feel
wants
like
to
this
do
is
that.
about to get very autobiographical really quick on Brayland.
I've
But
never
also,
done-
like, he has that moment where, like, his aunt and Trailer Park Uncle get blown up, and then the scene later, he's just like, oh, thank God I survived. Oh, yeah, all those people got killed. Like, all the people that, like, all the families we saw as he climbed down, in the first scene of the movie when he's climbing down from his apartment, like, the families and all the people playing, also on the Oasis get blown the fuck up. and he's okay with it a scene later. Like, there's literally no scene for him to deal with that. No scene for him to process it. He's literally just back in the game. He doesn't really give a shit. Like, I don't feel like that was the one thing that distracted me, is he was a little bit too okay with all those people getting blown the fuck up.
Yeah, I got a little bit like that. Kind of maybe involved in the plot, but kind of with the characters. So there was the two other parts of the high five. Like, I thought H had a pretty good arc, and then obviously the two leads had pretty good arcs. But the other two, like at the end when the one guy is before turning into a Gundam pilot, which I actually really love that. He was kind of like meditating there, and they're like, "Dude, you need to get involved. You need to go. You need to go." But there was nothing in his character at all before that would say that would happen.
So that part, Blue, it is a direct sort of section from the book, and I'm going to unpack that a little bit later once we talk about that, because it makes a lot more sense why he's doing that, because they're fighting a big battle, and there's something that happens in the book that's vastly different that doesn't happen in the movie, and so that there's a logical progression of why he does that. So it's the exact thing that you had said before of we get A and C, but what the heck happened to B? That's that B component that you're missing. Yeah. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense in the book, in the movie. And so it was weird when I said, I know who that character is and I know what they're trying to do, but I don't think people are going to pick up on it. So I'm glad you called that out.
As in the I was talking about in the video teaser, it was like, there was a lot of, like Abba was saying too, where you had with our main character with all the people in the stacks, and then all of a sudden he's like very fine that they're gone and trying to just push on with life. But then weirdly enough leverages that whole like sense of loss in the last scene to try and stop the bad dudes, even though that didn't work and gave us the stupid circles. It's kind of a mess. The character development there. It almost seems like you could have limited, cut down on a lot of the characters' screen times, and just had them. I feel like less. You can be more random and be forgiven more with less screen time. Instead, they put a focus on them for some points, and therefore, like, my mind started wandering and being like, well, why are they doing this? Why is this happening? What is this reaction coming from?
Well, I didn't
give more of a different response. Oh, like when you finally meet him. Besides, I am an 11-year-old kid, because you see throughout this movie, there's tons of people of all ages wearing VR goggles and fighting on the streets and everything.
They kept doing that too. They kept repeating like character dynamics. Like one of the things they did early on in the movie was they repeated the fact that, like, one of the first things that Wade says is, "Oh, my parents died. I live with my aunt." And then later on he says, "Oh, my parents died. I live with my aunt." And it happened again. And then the same thing happened with the one character where he's like, "Oh, I'm 11. What do you want to do? Give me a hug?" And then he says it again, or like what? And they keep doing that, and it's repetitive. But I mean, maybe that is supposed to be reflective of video games in general being repetitive and sending you on missions doing the same thing over and over again. Maybe that's what they were going for. But I don't know. I think they were trying to pull something off that didn't really come through directly, because some of the characters didn't portray the same way that they did in the book. Obviously, I don't know because I didn't read the book. But if you can tell me that the book also has a fight between a Gundam, a Mechagodzilla, it does. Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, but honestly, like, if I'm talking to you as a full-blown adult who doesn't know how to read, I would rather see it in a movie than read it in a book.
Well, the thing about it is that once we get there, we're not going to obviously unpack all components of the book, but the movie starts off with them trying to get this piece, and that's then culminated at the end of the the battle sequence that they kind of sort of they showed like maybe 15% of what it should have been, really, and it was a huge deal of why it ended up happening, because there's like a timer limit on it, and like they also explain a lot of stuff for the reasons why in the book. But you have like obviously more time, and I think we talked about this before in a little bit, but I think that's one of the issues that I think also when we're talking about characters, when we're talking about acting, right? I really just think they needed more time, and more time does translate into like maybe 2 movies, maybe 3 movies. I know we talk about 3 movies, maybe 2 movies, right? And just have key number 1 and 2 be movie 1, and then key number 3, and then everything else, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in that third arc or that third act. It would be movie number 2, and you just have a chance to kind of breathe and learn why H, and you learn who H is, and you learn why she has a van, and you just learn all this stuff that's it just starts to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, aren't we all trying to just get a piece?
I couldn't decide whether I wanted more time in the real world or more time in the Oasis at the end of this movie. Like, I'll open this question up to you guys. Like, I think they try to jam too much in, but I also think that if you put more time in the real world, because that's where they really fostered those relationships, then all of a sudden you have less time with Gundams fighting Mechagodzilla. And then the flip side, I think that if you had everything in the Oasis, you lose a little bit of the personal touch.
Well, they miss a big point of the Oasis, that it is not just a place to play games. That is also where people go to school, go to work, and make money and stuff like that.
Well, that's what I thought was weird.
The primary economic system of the world at that time, and they really don't get that across in this movie. It's more of just like, hey, it's a big gaming platform that essentially everybody plays, and then when they're not in it, they're going about their lives. Like, you notice, I mean, the way they describe the stacks in the real world in the books is that, yeah, fuels run out, water is scarce, and it's very bad place for everybody. So they all go to the Oasis, and that you do see in this movie. Yeah, you have the stacks, but it's also just like another neighborhood. You see a good neighborhood. You see like the corporate sector of Columbus, Ohio. So they kind of missed the ball and the point of what the book was trying to convey with what the Oasis is.
Yeah, I wasn't quite convinced in the dystopian future. Like, considering it was so far flung, like 2045 didn't seem that bad once we got out of the, like, you see the stacks and it's like it's like a stacked up mobile home, like trailer park. But then you do see other parts of the city, and that doesn't look like any other part of, like, when I go to San Diego for Comic-Con, I see that kind of like tent cities with homeless people living out there. Like, that just looked like what I've seen when I drive into the city. Like, that's shit that's going on nowadays. Like, people live like that nowadays. Like, that's not anything new. That's not anything far-flung future like that's happening. But yeah, I feel like it's probably pushed a lot harder in the books, but in the movie there was this weird separation where suddenly there's this stacks neighborhood that doesn't really jive with the rest of the world, and it's just kind of doing its own thing, and there's this weird disconnect that didn't really come across, I feel like, correctly or successfully.
Yeah, I mean, as we transition into like talking about, right, like from actors and characters to like differences in the book than the movie, and like kind of vice versa, it really does become apparent that there's just a lot of stuff that they just kind of left out or they couldn't add in for some whatever reason, right? It's just not in this movie. And that's a big one in particular, because you start to learn exactly like who Parzival or Wade's character is, and the fact that he is nothing. He doesn't have anything. He doesn't have a DeLorean car that he drives. He doesn't really have a lot of that stuff in the book. So he really kind of has to build up, and what makes him special, right? What makes him kind of the chosen one is his vast, like ridiculous amount of like obsessive knowledge on Holiday, and he's just been studying it and studying it and studying it this entire time. And we just don't get that time that you get from the books. And so you are introduced to that pretty early on. And the fact that I think somebody had said it, I think it was Blewett, they actually spend, I don't know if it's a percentage, but the large percentage of it, I think it's like maybe like 70% in the Oasis or in the, virtual world in the book, I think. And then at one point they disconnect completely and spend a lot of time in the real world, and it gets crazy, like absolutely fucking crazy what happens in the real world. And then in order to kind of finish the game, right, you have to then go back to the virtual world, and then you just spend kind of the rest of the time in there. And it's interesting to see like they were kind of basically jumping back and forth a lot, and it was kind of distracting, especially all the side characters of Middleton's like henchmen's, the woman henchman that was trying to kill them. That was that was just kind of weird and just kind of wasted time, I thought.
Yeah, she didn't have enough screen time at all. There wasn't really any explanation for what she was doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a lot of stuff that they kind of put into it that it was just kind of a bummer. Even for the fact like the first, like the scoreboard, right? They even kind of mentioned that scoreboard was like a big thing. And when Parsifal found like the first key, he got it. Artemis was there, but Parsifal, I think, like figured it out first, and that's why his name was on the board, and that's when he became like crazy because everybody was like trying to find out who he was and how he ended up figuring it out. And he was the only name on the board for like a long time, and there was like a lot of time that you can like live with that. And then things started kind of progressing, and that leaderboard would change constantly.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I had this moment when he actually revealed, like in the movie at least, when he's talking to Artemis and he's like, I love you, my name's Wade. I kind of had a moment where I was just like, well, you fucking, like, even if you're talking to some girl like that you think's a girl, who might not even be a girl, but you're talking to her on like a fucking chat room, you don't tell her your real name. Fuck that. Like, you don't tell anybody your real, like, we grew up in the era where it's like, yeah, you don't tell anybody your real information because next thing you know, they're fucking showing up on your doorstep. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, it's not a big deal because it's like whatever. Everybody knows everybody. It's the internet. Like whatever, anybody connects. But like back when we were growing up in the 90s, it's like, no, that's weird.
I'm glad she responded accordingly too, though. Where she was like, right? You're an idiot.
Don't tell me your name. I don't give a fuck what your name is.
Yeah, I wish they really doubled down on what it meant that Parsifal like got to the top of scoreboard first. That instant celebrity like pressure, and show that a bit more. They do have like, hey, let me take a picture with you. And it's a way that IROC actually uses to like kind of eavesdrop on Parsifal and Artemis. But there's also some really cool things in the book, like Parsifal having to deal with sponsorships and which ones is he going to take, which job is he going to take to keep himself financially competitive still in the rat race and everything, but also who's going to screw him over and who's not. And I think that is a struggle they should have had in the movie that they're totally missing.
I feel like the stress of washing out in the book was probably heavier because it's sort of touched upon in the movie, like, oh, if you die, you lose all your shit. And like, I could think about that. Like, Warren, think about if we were playing Monster Hunter and if you got killed by a monster, you lose all your stuff. Like 200 hours worth of stuff just goes once you get killed. Like that would suck.
Yeah. Break my PlayStation.
We would both just be crying at each other, like nonstop.
Yeah. I can see that.
And so like in the movie, it's just kind of like whatever, because then you see the montages of Planet Doom where they're just like shooting each other left and right and people are dying, whatever, and like nobody seems to care because they just want to farm coins, and like that's kind of understanding, but I feel like it's stressed more possibly in the book. Can either of you confirm that?
That actually isn't stressed too much of like dying, and it just doesn't happen as much. I mean, when it happened, like kind of sucks, but it just wasn't stressed too much about it. The one biggest thing that I was kind of alluding to earlier, and then I think definitely Bradley can help me out with this, but you have like the five those main five characters, and there's a point in which people start finding, like, so IOD, I think their name are IOI. There we go. They start finding out these people's real identities, and they're hunting these people down. They're trying to get this Easter egg, and they're trying to basically just take over this game and just control it so much that I can't remember how they found Daitos, but I think they were. He at one point, like, they were all like playing, stuff was happening, and then it was weird because he had this recording and he was basically saying that, hey, this corporation is evil, they've been going after people, they've been killing people, like, we need to rise up and like almost had like a small revolution, so they had to take him out. So he had this camera like recording him as he's playing on this VR, and they burst into it because they find out who he was. They burst into his room and they throw them out of the window with all his VR gear, all his gear on. And I think in the book, it's like, oh, he just like logged off, but you see him like literally die. They actually like describe that, Daito actually dies in the book, and he's long gone. Now, Daito and Sho are like best friends, but they were like brothers because they always played together, and like they had like this awesome brotherhood that they always were together the entire time. And so then you fast forward to that part that you were talking about, Blewett, of there was these pieces that they had to collect. I think it was 3 pieces, Brylan. Do you remember how many pieces were there? The arm. I thought there was like another piece that he had to collect to get like this that mechanical warrior.
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I gotta look back into it. But he basically was collecting all these pieces because they had like one chance, and he sacrificed himself. That's why he's doing that like that meditation that you were talking about. He sacrificed himself, and literally, I think he actually dies. He also dies in the book too. So Sho also dies when he sacrificed himself to save everybody else. And it makes a lot more sense in the book because he dies, and in the movie, Sho and Daito are not dead, and everybody was just going through and killing their avatars and be like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And it just really like, it just deleted and like just changed the stakes of it, because if death is not a issue, right? If that's not like something to be afraid of, then who cares? And it was just really tough.
I think they definitely could have afforded to murked a few more of the main characters, because it was like you reach the end of the movie and everybody's still alive. It's like, well, yeah, but shit, what happened? Oh yeah, but my avatar died. Who cares? Like that's not relevant. Like I understand. Yeah, it's almost going back on what I just said. Like washing out in the game is like one thing. You wasted time, but like if you die in the real world, like after the explosion of the stacks, that's the only time that like it gets real. Otherwise, it's like, okay, so that guy's got a gun. He wants to kill Wade, but yeah, like if that was, now I'm a little upset because now you're telling me people die in the book. Like I kind of wish people died in the movie too.
Well, that has like that gives it more of like gravity, where things that happen in the Oasis have ramifications that carry over to the real world, which is usually not the case with currently how video games operate. Also, one last thing on the stacks, we didn't, as an audience, we shouldn't have cared for them at all. Like it was the abusive boyfriend and like
garbage people.
Yeah, it was just it was like terrible human beings that we were supposed to feel distant from, and then they go and die. I mean, honestly, we were talking about earlier Wade's instant transformation back to like, hey, I'm fine. Let's just go try and get the keys again. I mean, that's, as an audience, kind of how we were supposed to told. No one we really.
Are you saying they're like paper dolls sent through the shredder?
But paper dolls that were like abusive and hit their kids.
A lot of the side characters just remind me of like those 80s Spielberg films. Of those same side characters, that you do have like the crazy drunk husband and the wife that stays with them but yells at them and stuff. Yep. But it always has this level of cleanness to it that you don't really see in the real world. And like if you look at the stacks, they're like neat, organized trailer parks that, hey, we have some very nice curated trash over here for you, or this nice little flaming bin over here that's got some like perfectly symmetrical like homeless people walking around it and stuff. And I'm just like, even your bad parts of town look too nice.
Yeah. I mean,
Roald Dahl used to say that like the adventure doesn't begin until the parents are gone ish. I'm like paraphrasing, but like in most of his books, he used to kill the parents right off. So that makes sense. Like the aunt and the weird white trash uncle beater guy were killed super quick. So that's when things started to pick up. So that made more sense to me. But like I guess like the reaction wasn't what I would expect.
So I mean, there's a lot of other things. I'll just do like a few highlights from like big differences that I think really changed the outcome of the movie. Like in the book, Wade was like really kind of like on one stage like killed some people. He like really was like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. So he bought a bunch of like just backdoor like sort of codes and like blacklist codes and stuff like that, and like just logged off. Got a job at IOI. I was like, what the heck am I gonna say IOD? He got a job at IOI, like shaved his head, like got moved into this new apartment, like infiltrated them from the inside, and then to bring them down like internally, which is this kind of crazy thing that's happening, which was just an awesome way of just seeing like, because he was like struggling too, and it was like crazy how like he was like super overweight and like out of shape too, and he got like fit. So it's like this thing that you also they explained of why he's doing all of this stuff.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, it's also explained why H is driving a van, and like H has like the super fast like Wi-Fi, and because she doesn't want to get seen or kind of caught, they can never like pinpoint, because they were always close. Then she like goes away, and like they can never like find where she was. And at a moment, that's when H finds like links up with Wade, and that's when it was like this huge sort of like revelation that H is a woman, actually it's not a man. And that also was like kind of ruined in this movie, I think, because I can recognize her voice when I heard of her talk for the first time. I was like, I actually know who that actress is.
Well, that's what I thought because she was the only character that had a voice changer. I thought it was going to be, especially when she got into the whole like, Artemis could be a 300-pound guy from Detroit. I thought it was going to be this weird storyline where she was going to be in love with Wade. I thought that's what they were kind of going for.
I'm glad they never did that.
Yeah.
No, it was a huge point in the book. There was just this like an amazing reveal that they just didn't care about in the movie at all, and it was kind of a sad, because it made more sense. You also see that how close of friends that they've known each other and played together for like a long time, and then finally the moment that they meet in real life, it's like everything turns upside down, because Wade wasn't even good at talking to women, and his best friend this entire time is a woman.
It's like if you and I were playing Monster Hunter, and suddenly I found out, even though I'd met you previously and identified you as male, suddenly you were a female. That would be weird. It would be interesting.
Well, what's behind door number 1, Johnny?
Man, the whole time.
What really surprised me, because like I was reading a lot about like the development of this movie, because I really like the book. And I first heard Gabby Sidibe was going to be H. And it did not turn out to be Gabby Sidibe, who I think would have been amazing for the role.
No, what's Gabby Sidibe in?
She was in Precious.
Oh, okay. That would have been interesting.
No.
Not more. It was interesting. I was just talking to this movie with Lewis, and he was like, because he was reading the book, and he hadn't watched the movie just yet, so he wants to finish the book so he can watch the movie. And he said, I like the fact that they gave her this like tomboyish sort of look, and they made H a man in the virtual reality instead of a woman, because that's the only time that she can be who she identifies as in like real life, not really. And I thought that was an interesting sort of concept that I actually never thought of. I thought it was pretty cool.
I'll play some lady characters in World of Warcraft from time to time.
Yeah.
Wait, so is she a female avatar in the book?
No. She's a male.
It's a male, but it doesn't look anything like what we get in this actual movie. And I think the other thing that was different, I think that entire all the, I mean, I don't want to like nitpick everything, but like almost every puzzle was different. They had a lot more video games and the challenges that they had to do that they just kind of glossed over. But it was just the fact like the end sort of battle sequence was just very, very different also. Even like the third sort of key was also different, and it really kind of changed a lot of the stuff that's why one of the things I think is that it's a completely different movie, because once you change 2 or 3 things, you're like, whoa, I don't understand why they're doing this. That doesn't really make sense. So
that's the third key. The third key felt so irrelevant in the movie, because I was like, shit, I've seen this walkthrough on YouTube. Like the other 2, the first 2 were more like were more personal to him, the way that they were presented in the movie. And the third one was just like, yeah, but did you know about this secret room in Adventure though? Like, yeah.
I have to balance this key to put
oh my god, that part drove me crazy. The part where he was trying to like, oh my god.
That part of it was dumb.
That was
wiggling the key into the lock was fucking driving me crazy. I was literally in there being like screaming at the screen, because I was the only person in there, so I could scream all I wanted. And I was like, this is dumb. I want my money back.
There was no dramatic tension
I
to
would
that.
say, with the puzzles and everything, and I think this is part of the thing where the book has this power of nostalgia, specifically 80s nostalgia. And I think it actually helps, because when you open up that door and open it up for all decades like they did for the movie, that you lose a lot of the magic and you lose a lot of focus of why is it a challenge to accomplish this certain goal, which is already ingrained in this 80s world. Like the race is terrible. The race is god awful. But imagine if that race was a Mario Kart level for New Donk City. Even though that's not 80s, that's still going to give you more of a sense of nostalgia as a race than this generic race through New York to where you just have to drive backwards and you beat it, which is the dumbest clue ever. The clues are definitely more intelligible in the book, and they actually make you think a little bit more about like, hey, Gary Gygax created this demon one time in Dungeons of Dragons that is the like the least used demon ever, and somehow you got to actually talk to it to actually get a key and stuff.
To be fair, on that last one, I personally liked it because it is like the Easter egg. Yeah. So the adventure thing, I'm fine with. I think that's great. And also, I think that it didn't really rely on, like, the way the movie unfolded, they didn't do any of the clue solving to get to that point. So I thought it was that the third key was easy. It was what came after it that was the hard part. I think that the true test of character, like the third key was basically an excuse to have a huge battle, where the test of character one was the contract that he didn't sign. And that, to me, it made the third key very excusable, that it was, one, very easy to figure out, and two, there wasn't a lot of like running around to actually go through the clues like the first and second one were.
Yeah, how come there were no Nintendo references?
Because they didn't have the license. That's the easy answer.
The lawyers involved in this movie must have been absolutely nuts. They
were pounded. They had probably so much shit to work through getting that stuff locked down. But like Nintendo was probably like, "No, we ain't gonna do it."
Yeah. They definitely got Hasbro and Blizzard, Activision, and Disney on board.
Were there G.I. Joes and Transformers in there? Did I miss those? There was He-Man. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking into like this, Brylan. I forgot that they were playing Joust, and it was Ultraman in the book, and it wasn't a Gundam. It was the Ultraman in the book.
Ultraman's still pretty cool though.
Yeah.
But now that I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of upset that there wasn't like an Optimus Prime or a Megatron or any of that shit in there.
Yeah, that's Michael Bay's fault. But the one puzzle I thought was that definitely actually got the nostalgia right was everything at the Overlook Hotel up until the end of it. Just having them walk in and you're back in The Shining was fucking amazing. That even like the film grain changed a bit. They're walking down the stairs and they see Jack's typewriter and it's actually writing in the shape of a key, the same things that he would actually type. Seeing the little twin girls and kind of making like a comedic moment out of that, which was like one of the very horrifying moments in that movie, I thought was awesome. But
the Shining part was amazing.
The Shining part, I mean, it was awesome. I thought that the clue in the puzzle should have been in the hedge maze, which it was not. This is where they do something amazing and then they drop it on its ass by the clue in the puzzle being this random game that Halliday made that's about a bunch of dancing zombies and you just got to jump from zombie to zombie.
Which didn't make any sense. Yeah. Jack Nicholson would have been cool if he could have shown up for like that. Like the scene where he's getting chased through the hedge maze with the axe and you see it like in the corner of the screen, like that's terrifying, but I wanted it to pan out and then just be Jack Nicholson. Like I wanted that to happen. And then the scene,
even having the scary naked lady in room 237 was awesome.
Yeah, that scene scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. And then when I watched it in this movie, I was just like, okay, well now she's CG. I don't give a fuck. Like she's not that scary because you can literally pinpoint, even though the graphics were like really, really well done in this movie, the scene where she literally switches from being like a legit naked lady with boobs and vagina and everything to digital lady, zombie woman. And even there's the scene where they're like, oh, she turned into a zombie. Oh, there wasn't a zombie in the movie. Yeah, no, there wasn't a zombie in the movie. She was just really decrepit and gross. But like in that scene, it was like, I know what's going to happen, but it wasn't scary because she legit turned into CG. She wasn't like made up like she was in the original movie. It would have been cool if they used like actual scenes from the original movie. That would have been cool.
I bet it'd be hard to digitally composite it together.
Probably a great challenge, but I mean,
I would have done it. I would have done it 10 times.
Yeah, I to agree with that. They definitely alluded to the key being in the center of a maze a whole bunch of times, which it ended up being with the whole adventure Easter egg. But I think you're right, Bryland, where I could have definitely used it to be in the middle of a literal maze. Especially with all the like the hazards they had to get to that. Like if you had to go play like a classic duck and jump game to get to the center of that maze with those axes, like that would have been incredible. And that would have fit with the 80s video game nostalgia as well.
I mean, because I'm like looking back at it, right? And for like the first clue, it was him playing Joust, and the third clue, he had to play Tempest, and he was playing Monty Python, the Holy Grail, and because he survived the bomb, he played Pac-Man. I remember that, and that's how he got the extra life. And
yeah, the second clue is probably the most interesting because he has to like recite Ferris Bueller's Day Off or something like that.
This one, it was the
or he has to play Matthew Broderick in a movie.
Yeah, War Games.
But that was so I think each clue had there was a game, and then you had to do like a scenario that you had to like figure out, remember? So the first one was like you play a game and then you have to apply it and then do both to progress. You can only do one. If you can't do both, it doesn't matter.
Did they have the library of his memories in the book?
There's a guide, an electronic guide. So there's not like an actual virtual library.
That part was kind of cool. I did enjoy that part. Like that concept sort of led to me being like, when I started to hint at him being like cognizant in the afterlife, sort of being like, well, what, like, you're not just a memory, you're not just a saved program. Like, what are you? Like when I was watching the memories that were built up in that part of the movie, at least, I kept starting thinking like, well, shit, like what is this Halliday that we keep seeing? Because he seems very like about it. He seems very like, aware of what's around him. And then at the end of the movie, when it's just like he asked that question, like, what are you? I was just like, yeah, I've been wondering that too. I hope I get an answer. And then it's like, nope, just the end. Congratulations.
Well, even
made it.
So and I think the other thing I was wondering what the difference of, I think Wade or Parsifal in the book like just randomly plays a perfect game of Pac-Man, and that's when he's like awarded that coin, and that's changed because he just bets him on a bet and gives him this coin, and it's like, oh, okay, that's weird. I wonder how that's going to come back. So you can see that there.
Pac-Man's for scrubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so
I
it
would
looks
say,
like we talked a lot about plot and differences of the books for right now too, so we can continue on that sort of trend.
Yeah, I would say like one piece that I thought was amazing when it comes to nostalgia, and just seeing during the big battle, just seeing Serenity come down and then Daito put on his glove and say, "I take the form of Gundam," and I was like, "Oh my god, this was amazing." And the way the Gundam moved and everything, I was like, Spielberg, make a Gundam movie right now because you got this part right. Just do it, because it was perfect how they did that.
That was the effect I kept having, was like, it just goes to show how many movies could be made super easy by just 3D effects. Like Iron Giant, make a sequel to Iron Giant right now. Brad Bird, please do it right now.
Sure they are.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a while.
He's working on Incredibles 2. Give him a break.
Yeah, it's coming out this summer. So do it like next summer, or do it like now.
But I did enjoy a lot of that battle at the end, because like a lot of the stuff they just kind of added in the movie, and I'm glad they did. That Mechagodzilla looked absolutely badass. I thought that was pretty cool.
But what about real Godzilla?
No, that was never supposed to show up. So, but I think you get a dinosaur. You get a dinosaur in the opening race.
I think it's supposed to be the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, because Spielberg is a self-serving idiot.
No, they took out all his stuff.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, they
Did you
did.
see that? Like
No, you're lying.
those fancy like hops that King Kong was doing. Dude was like sporting some moves.
He had Jordans on.
Yeah,
He had the Jordans on.
That's an inside joke, Abbott.
But yeah, like I would say that the movie kind of like falters a lot with the nostalgia, but when it does get it right, it does do it really well. And I think that Gundam scene is like perfect.
Well, the fact that I saw Battletoads and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Gundams, I was really hoping for Street Sharks to pop up, but it's okay.
But it was Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I saw that too.
That was the one faux pas. I was
I
I almost gasped in the theater. I was like, why can't you have like regular, normal American Ninja Turtles? Michael Bay's Ninja Turtles are an abomination.
It was Killer Instinct Battletoads as well. So.
Yeah, it was still awesome. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Yeah. So what else you guys got? Any lasting thoughts that we want to talk about? Ready Player One. Toss it over to Brylan.
So I would say that the movie has some high marks, but a lot of it is very, very low. And it's not a good movie, but it is entertaining. It is visually beautiful. So I would definitely watch it, on Netflix or something if you have a nice 4K TV. If you want a movie that, or if you want a series or a movie that actually explores these type of things and does it better, either one, read the book Ready Player One, or to watch Sword Art Online. That's my recommendation.
All of it, or just the first season and a half?
Season 1 and season 3.
Okay, good call.
And I'm still waiting to see Ordinal Scale, so I don't know how that is.
Nerds.
I'm gonna let you finish, Brylan, but season 2 is trash. Abbott, lasting thoughts and things you want to talk about?
I don't know how to read, so I didn't read the book, but I did really enjoy the movie. I was surprised. I had the theater all to myself. It was majestic. It was very nice, and I enjoyed the movie because it was in 3D. I haven't enjoyed a 3D movie since Jackass 3D, so that was kind of something to talk about. It was kind of interesting because I was like, everything's in my face, and it's not flies flying around poop. It's actually like parts of this movie that made sense. But yeah, my nerd boner was extremely hard during this film. And I would recommend people to go see it, whether or not you've seen. Well, yeah, if you've seen the book, sure. If you've looked at it, that's fine. But if you've read it, you might have a different reaction. But yeah, no, I think it was fun for a Spielberg movie. I could definitely look at it and be like, yes, this is a Spielberg movie. That's fine. But yeah, in general, whatever. Go see it. Check it out. It's entertaining. But it definitely has things that could have improved it and made it better. But it's still a fun movie. So check it out.
Blow it.
Yeah, I thought it was a great way to start the summer blockbuster stretch. It's coming up on the time when you start putting out all the fluff pieces that look really pretty and have cool action, but don't actually have any substance behind them. And it's basically just Avatar 10 years later. There wasn't a ton that I left feeling like, oh my God, this changes my opinion on X. That being said, it was a pretty solid little story with great special effects.
Avatar's garbage.
I've never seen it.
Start on 4/27.
Going up to my lasting thoughts is, I think we talked about it a bunch as a nice popcorn film. I'm pretty sure I'll watch this movie in the background, but I'm never going to pay for this movie again. But it's because I enjoyed the book that much. The book's not perfect, right? But at least it gives me a more realistic approach of people's going to do bad shit. And if I'm an actual bad guy, bad person, a villain, they're going to go to no stops to actually destroy somebody to get what they want. And it felt like this PG-13, although they did say fucking and shit a couple times, they
get one F word, and that was
one F-bomb.
So
you said there were so many, and when I saw it, I was waiting, and there was one, and I was like, he kind of mumbled it. I could barely hear what he said.
No, that That was like the greatest. That was so well used.
I don't remember it. I guess maybe I get my mixed movies
The
mixed up.
Chucky bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that fucking Chucky?
Chucky Bomb was pretty cool.
That
Though.
was so funny.
Here, take
I
this
like
little
it.
guy.
That was hilarious. But like I just really much like just disappointed with the movie. Disappointed with how much they changed, how they just removed the character. They removed a lot of stakes. They removed a lot of story. They put in stuff that I felt like they think is visually pleasing that maybe not best to tell a movie. And I'm just going off the book, right? And if I would have like removed my knowledge from reading the book to just watching a movie, I would probably say I like this movie, and I would probably tell people to go watch this movie because you have a different entirely story. But either a couple of things they need to do, just take the name Ready Player One off, or just say Ready Player One like different universe, or redo this and make it into 2, potentially 3 movies, and give the time that's needed for these characters for us to grow with these characters. So when she breaks up with him and they have a fight at the dance, like you see that there's impact that happens with him, and he's going to go alone. He logs off. He assumes a new identity and starts infiltrating this evil corporation. And you see the fact that there's motive behind his actions, and it doesn't just go from beat to beat. That happens in a movie because we have to push everything down to 2.5 hours. So it's kind of frustrating. I was like pretty disappointed in the movie. I don't know if I'll recommend people to watch the movie if they've seen the book, but if you haven't, I would recommend it. And that's a lot of things. The first time that somebody asked me if I seen Ready Player One, the second question they asked me is, "Did you read the book?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's probably not good." But at the same time, I think these things are going to happen in every sort of book to movie sort of series or sort of occasion. So there you go.
Can I make a quick Fear Boners interjection?
No.
Okay, well, if you listen to Fear Boners and you're a fan of fear, scary movies in general, this movie actually does a fair amount of references that you might enjoy, including The Shining, but also you see Freddy, Jason, and Chucky throughout the film, which is actually kind of satisfying. But also, there's a great alien reference. It's quick, but it's in there, and it's pretty satisfying. So if you enjoy horror movies, definitely check out this movie.
Oh, the little
That was
hand,
probably-
right? That was
Yeah,
cool.
was
it's
probably
Goro.
the
That's
closest.
amazing.
Laura? Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. And with that, we are the Down in Front Podcast, the official podcast of downinfrontpodcast.com. Thanks for hanging out with us. Aw, that was a cat that was dying. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for hanging out with Ready Player One. That's our entire review. So definitely kind of check out for more of our work. I'm going to toss it over to Rylan. Where can you find more of your work?
You can find me in the Oasis looking like a giant purple kangaroo, but also on Twitter at Bryland, BRILUND. On Instagram, I usually will review movies and TV shows, but I reviewed some wine tonight, so check it out. I am Bryland. And when I'm not in California, enjoying the wonderful weather that we have here, I am on the Gamescast hosting it, Down in Front twitch.tv/Down in Front Podcast. So definitely check it out.
Abbott.
I am the Abs Man on the internet. You can find me at TheAbbsMan. I'm all over the place, all up in your face. I also just recently created an email where you can contact me individually asking any questions about my particular hard fear boner at fearbonersdifp@gmail.com. And I will respond to you personally and offensively. But otherwise, you can find me here.
Blewett.
Yeah, you can find me on the internet as Mayonnaise Music or Mayonnaise Band. Still cracking away at that. You know, we're gonna be big someday. But if you have a
album set,
if you have a bat mitzvah or confirmation that you need music for,
A bris.
no, I refuse to go.
Quinceañera.
I'm not gonna go to a bris that I'm not the one performing it. So be kind of weird.
Fair. That's fair.
Are y'all up to a triple LP yet?
Yeah, we're trying to beat what's his face, Guns N' Roses for longest between albums. We released an album in high school. We released an EP about a year ago, so I don't think that necessarily counts. So we got another like 8 or 9 years to go. And then you can find me on email at playwithjesse to make him a happy boy at hotmail.com.
Okay. That's disgusting.
Just do it.
Just don't work with Jesse, because then you'll just be all of us and start a podcast.
And we are the Down in Front Podcast. Definitely check out more of our work. We have Twitter at _DAFP. That's _DAFP for Down in Front Podcast. Facebook, facebook.com/Down in Front Podcast as well, for everybody who wants to help us out. And we are doing our 3rd installment of Last Call for all of our patrons. For everybody who wants to get some content early and just hang out with us, definitely check that out. Definitely go and donate. Anything and everything super, super helpful. 99 cents up to $1. You can donate as much as you like. So definitely check that out and become a patron to help us out with any sort of costs that we do for the show. Patreon.com/Down in Front Podcast. I also want to give a quick shout out to Mike Blewett for making some amazing music for our actual show, and that is going to be on our SoundCloud. So definitely go check that out. We have a bunch of our works, and we have a bunch of other side projects that we've been doing on our website, downinfrontpodcast.com, and we want to thank you so much. And we will see you soon. And for that, we say we love you. So long, farewell. Auf Wiedersehen, get drunk.
Doing it.
Good night.
Oh, yeah.